I'm happy with how much rise I got out of that, but that's like a rock. And that was 5 minutes less than the timer called for. If you put butter on your bread when it's still hot, it will soften the crust. I think I better put the thermometer in my oven and see what my oven temperature is, because recently stuff has been coming out a little too dark. Let's see how this loaf turned out. This may not be the best knife to cut this with, but it might work. Look at that. I got a big air hole in that one. Oh, let's not make them too thick. I want to make sandwiches out of this. As an artisan bread, having a big hole in the middle is no big deal. I'm going to try the other end. Ah, that looks more like a sandwich slice. Let's turn it on its side. That crusty top is getting in the way of the knife. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's soft. It's still warm. So that's why it crushed a bit while I was cutting it. That's why it compressed a bit. I'll let it cool off the rest of the way before I slice any more. The outer crust has turned out pretty soft. This part is still crunchy, but the rest of it's turned soft. The butter helped. So there we have it. Today's lunch is a gluten-free bread with egg salad. And that's from the pantry, because the bread mix was in my pantry for a couple of months, and we have fresh eggs. Although our girls aren't laying very much right now, 1 or 2 eggs out of 8 hens is a little sad, but we're getting by. Lunchtime. It's Wednesday. If you've been around for any time here, you know that Wednesday is Fens Day. We have leftover broccoli and squash. We have some leftover meatloaf from last night. Dan has some fresh vegetables there that he's going to get into. He bought a platter. And we're having our dinner. I'll show you in a second. Wednesday, Fens Day. There's my dinner with the meatloaf and homemade ketchup, squash and broccoli, and some of that bread I made this morning.
I've got meatloaf and corn and beans left over with some raw veggies.
Yum! That's what's for dinner. It's lunchtime.
It's lunchtime. I'm in a rush, so I got a meeting in 20 minutes. Some nice things about working from home, but sometimes you gotta scramble still. It's one of these packaged salads. And I'll throw in maybe some tuna in there or something. And yes, I eat the whole thing. I'm a growing boy. Now, what direction I'm growing is part of the problem, though. That, and then just protein. Now, when I have tuna like this, I like to take some of the juice and put it in a dog's dish with their food. They like it. And just break that up a little bit, and then I just toss the whole thing. That's my lunch. That is a significant amount of food, but it's also a significant amount of fiber. I'm going to be raising the bed sheets tonight.
Oh no.
But it's good for me. It's good for me. There's a little bit of preservatives and not great stuff in the sauces maybe, but the rest of it's pretty good. Alright, that's what's for lunch.
2 can play at this game. I'm gonna have beans for lunch. We won't have to heat the house overnight. The bed'll be nice and warm. See this? It says $1.33 on the lid. This is one of the cans I bought in September for stock at September. There we go, beans and toast, gluten-free toast with a glass of milk. That's my lunch. It's hard to believe it's the 25th of January already. We're almost done this challenge. Dan is fixing dinner tonight, a recipe that he got from his mom, and I'd like to hand the camera over to him and the kitchen.
Alrighty, so we are making a recipe that my mama used to make. I don't know what the actual, origin of it is. If it's a certain culture, certain, I come from a French-Canadian background. I don't know if it's a French-Canadian thing or not. It might just be a farmer thing. We have a very special name for this. In French, we call it des saucisses puis des carottes. And those of you who speak French will be laughing right now, but ultimately all I said was some sausages and some carrots. That's the name of the recipe. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna turn on the heat here a bit. First thing we're gonna do is I have a set of these breakfast sausage things. My mother prefers a certain brand, but we don't have that where we are in Ontario. So we're going to brown those up. So let's start by opening that up. Put a little butter in there for both flavor and for keep it non-stick. I mean, this is kind of a non-stick pan, but not a great pan, by the way. I think it's time to splurge for some nicer quality. Tried different types of non-stick stuff. Karen really likes cast iron. I despise cast iron. I know most of you probably actually like cast iron, but it's me. Hey, let's just get these in here. They're going to take a little bit to cook. Normally this is made in a stew pot, like a big pot. Made like a stew or a soup. And we're going to do it in this pan for today. It is a pretty big pan. I'm going to be adding this slowly to it, but we'll start with the onions, of course. Or aromatics, as they call them. There's no garlic in this recipe, so that's rare for me cooking without garlic. Okay, we're gonna let that brown up, cook and brown up and caramelize the onions at the same time. Now we're just trying to brown these up a little bit. We don't need to cook them. They're going to be stewing for a while, cooking in the pot. We'll give them just a little bit more time and then we'll move on to the next thing. Alright, this is coming along nicely. The onions are getting nice. Not completely brown, but that doesn't really matter that much. Just good to get them started. So, at this point, it's basically put everything else in. So we got some chopped celery in there, and we have some carrots, which will cook slowly in the pot. And we've got some stewed tomatoes that we canned on January 23, a little lighting, about a year ago. So we're going to pop that in there. We've also got a can of tomato sauce from September 22. And we'll put that in there. If these were to be used, I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably not. These would be used by September, so we had to use these up too. That's diced tomatoes. So we got the trifecta going on here. We're gonna add a little thyme to this. How much? I don't know. I never measure that kind of stuff. Oregano. And the most important ingredient that nobody really knows what it does. Bay leaves. I'm gonna put a couple of those in there. There we go. Now we're gonna turn that down a bit. I'm gonna mix it up. There we go. It's ready. Not really. So I'm gonna cover this up, and we're gonna turn that down to a simmer. That's probably gonna simmer for about an hour. All right, it's been over an hour actually. Let's see how this looks. I don't think I needed this much tomato. Oh well. I think everything's kind of ready. The carrots are still a little firm. Normally they're kind of almost mushy. But this should be good. It's got a little bit more time left because, yeah, some canned potatoes. My hands are getting steamed up from August, and we're going to get these boiled up and mashed, and they shouldn't take very long at all.
There's my dinner, sausage and carrots stewed in tomatoes with mashed potatoes. I don't remember what he calls it. He says it so fast, and it's French, so it's sausage and carrots.
And here's mine. It's a heavy plate. It's heavy food. We're gonna put a little bit of pepper on here. A lot of pepper. And I think we're good.
All right, I'm just gonna try the sauce, and I'll leave the sausage and carrots for a few minutes. It's gonna be hot. What do you call this?
Des saucisses puis des carottes.
Yeah, I still can't get it. It tastes unadulterated. It just tastes like tomatoes and carrots and sausage with some seasoning. It's very simple, wholesome,
Stick to your ribs.
salt of the earth kind of food.
Yeah, stick to your ribs kind of food.
I think it does need some salt and pepper, but it's good.
All right, Mom, I'm trying. Oh, Mom, mine is way better than yours. No.
Well, it's lunchtime. I'm having a couple of eggs. Oh, somebody knows that I've got this package opened. Can you hear her nails clicking across the floor? Miss Lily, what do you want? She's right beside me. Well, it's quite common to have eggs and cheese together, so we'll have a bit of cheese. We have this package of gluten-free crackers in the cupboard. Might as well have a handful of crackers. Oh, and they're quite broken. That'll be delicious. And I opened the fridge and I saw this jar that looks like it's empty. It has one pickle in it. Let's put that over here next to the eggs. Eggs and pickle taste good together. I haven't made pickled eggs in a long time. We don't have enough eggs for that right now. Let's open another jar. There we go, more pickles. I did have some cucumber pickles in there, so these are not all zucchini, but I labeled them all as dill pickles so that they would get eaten up regardless of which ones somebody grabbed. And these are very soft. I have to figure out the crisp pickle thing. So there we go, that's my lunch. I don't usually eat plain boiled eggs. I usually put them in a sandwich. So that's it, that's my lunch today. Dan grabbed some of that leftover sausage and carrot that he made last night for dinner, and I could have that too if this isn't enough, but this is what's for lunch. The best before date on that is December 27 of 2023. While I know in the freezer that best before date is pretty much eradicated, I don't want to leave it in there any longer, and I have a use for it tonight. So we're having bacon from our freezer. I consider that our freezer counts as part of our pantry. It's not just the canned goods pantry that I'm using up during this pantry challenge. It includes the frozen stuff. Along with our bacon, we're going to have chaffles for dinner, which is basically egg and cheese mixed together into a waffle iron. And there are dozens upon dozens of variations of the recipes out there. You can work with just egg and cheese, period, nothing else. I'm going to alter mine. I'm making enough for 4 or 6 chaffles. That should feed the 2 of us. We both love them so much. So this is about 2 cups of cheese, maybe 2.5. And it's just cheddar. And I have 4 tablespoons of almond flour. You could certainly cut this recipe in half. So 4 tablespoons of almond flour, 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum, and 1 teaspoon of ground flax meal. I'm just adding that for fiber, but it also makes it thicker. Mixing all the dry ingredients together because you want the xanthan gum mixed thoroughly while it's dry. If you mix it directly into the liquid, it will get clumpy and you'll have lumps of gumminess. Because I'm serving this up with last night's leftovers, which was a tomato, carrot, and sausage dinner, I'm going to add some interesting flavors. This is smoked paprika. And I don't have a measure on that. Was that 1/4 teaspoon? And chili powder. Is that another 1/4 teaspoon? Let's go with that. So this will give these a little bit of a Tex-Mex flavor on top of the nutty flavor from the flax meal and the almond. Okay, so that's all I have to do with that. I'm going to take this moment to plug in my chaffle or my waffle maker. My oven is preheated, so I'm putting my bacon in the oven, 20 minutes on 400 degrees. Okay, I'm just using home rendered pork lard to oil these waffle plates. And that'll take a couple minutes to get up to temperature. It will indicate with the green light when it's ready. Right, that's not on yet. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to crack in 2 eggs to start with, and if I need a 3rd egg, I'll put in a 3rd egg. Oh, this egg white is kind of watery. Let's start with 2 and see what I think. We don't mind if they're a little eggy, because this is breakfast for dinner, so I'm going to put in an extra egg, and that will help it to spread a little further. Then I think that's about as good as it's going to get. We could add another egg, but it will be very eggy. And it still may thicken up the xanthan gum and, oh, you know what? I am going to put in another egg. Because the xanthan gum and the flax meal will both thicken up and gel, I'm going to add an extra egg. Okay, the green light is on. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup measure and estimate, go from there to see how much I need. It's hot, apparently. Okay, that is a 1/4 cup. That works well in that measure. This one's a little bit of a more heaping. There was a big glob of cheese hanging out the top of that one. And we'll just let that do its thing until the steam stops coming off the sides. Okay, it's starting to smell crispy. There's still moisture coming off of it, but it's smelling delicious. That's still soft. I think it could use a little longer to cook. I'm going to check the bottom of this and see how that looks. No, they're still way too soft. Let's leave that for a minute or 2 longer. It's already been 4 minutes. Okay. I'm able to lift that off of there now. Let's set that on a cookie rack to cool. So that's it for tonight's dinner. I'm having 2 of the truffles. I'm having 3 slices of bacon, which is probably a little excessive for me. But we had some of that tomato and sausage and carrot mix left from last night, so I'm going to have that as well. I didn't realize it was going to be leaking all over the place, but the cheese and tomato will go well together. And that is what's for dinner. This morning's breakfast is homemade yogurt. Just plain. With homemade granola. I'm not fond of all the chocolate chips in there. They're very hard. Although granola can be crunchy, the chocolate chips are crunchier, and I'm not a fan. And then, just to sweeten it a little, a drizzle of maple syrup. And that's my breakfast. Yum, yum. Here I have ground beef that I've cooked up. It was on special this week, so I grabbed it. I've mixed it with some homemade taco seasoning. I will link the recipe for the taco seasoning video here above in the cards and down below in the description. I have onions and green peppers that I'm softening here in the pan. This will take no time at all to cook and pull together. I'm going to mix these now, and I think I probably can turn the heat off. It looks like it's done enough for me. I guess I better turn that heat back on. I've taken some time to chop a tomato, some jalapeno that was in the freezer. I ran some hot water over it to defrost it quickly. I've got my cheese shredded. I have a jar of salsa ready to go. I have a jar of sour cream / yogurt ready to go. And we're just waiting for the pot of rice to finish. A bit of my corn salsa. A bit of sour cream to cool off that meat in case it's too spicy for me. And there's my burrito bowl. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'll see you in the next one.